After a bit of deliberation, I decided on a 120mm fan for the front panel. This isn't the exact fan I'm going to use, but I just have it as a spare. So I trimmed down a tiny bit of plastic from around that post, as you can see. And if I now get the fan and set it down in here, it fits like a glove, you know? Check that out. It shouldn't interfere with the clip, fingers crossed. It shouldn't interfere with any of the other stuff. And you might be thinking it sticks over a little bit. But I've actually taken a ruler and I've measured that this from here to there is basically 9mm, and this plastic sort of stuff at the bottom is slightly taller than 9mm, it's like 9.5. So the theory is that when we trim out this excess plastic here, the fan is then going to sit flat in the body and it will be able to sit on the front panel. So the plan is to put the fan here, drill through 1, 2, 3, 4 holes. That's then going to leave me space on the front panel. I will then screw the fan to the front. I can draw with a Sharpie or another marker all the way around on the inside. That's going to give me a perfect circle here. I'll cut the big circle out using pretty much a Dremel, and then I can use some files to make it nice and smooth and whatnot. I'm going to drill the first hole just so I have a good starting point. I'm going to clamp down really firmly on here with my hand. I'm squeezing this piece of plastic, I'm squeezing the fan against the casing. I'm using a 4mm drill bit, and I've chosen this corner because there's nothing beneath it. So I need to make sure that I drill this one and then this one because there's nothing to pull the drill bit off course. And if I now pick this up, you can see we've got a fresh hole in the front panel. The next step is just to get some pliers, and I'm going to sort of snap the plastic away. So I put them on, grip firmly, twist it sort of back and forth, I guess, just to break it free. I'll do the same over here, and then we'll go along the sort of the line. You want quality pliers, you want to press down firmly. That way you snap all of it off. You don't want cheap pliers because they're not going to snap. They're going to leave sort of jagged bits. Now obviously no pair of pliers is perfect, but I've done it with cheap pliers, I've done it with expensive pliers. And pliers aren't something you should cheap out on. So I'm going to snap the rest of that off camera. I've done a bit of that off camera, so you can see I've just pretty much put the pliers on, snapped all the way down the lines. These sort of circular bits are a bit tougher, but you can get away with it. You just sort of put the pliers on. You'll squeeze them, you'll bend them, you'll sort of crimp them around, and eventually you will be able to break them off, even if it is slowly. I've broken the vast majority of that stuff off. It's obviously not perfect. In order to get it perfect, you need a razor blade. So you use the razor blade, you go flat, and you scrape along, and you get rid of all the tiny little bits that are sticking up and whatnot. But for what I need to do, just to set the fan down so I can drill the rest of the holes, this should be fine. To further help myself, I've put 2 bolts through here. So you see what I mean? I've just drilled the holes, put these bolts in, that holds the fan in place, and now that I know the fan can't shift around anymore, I can drill these last 2 holes. So I'm still going to hold down on it really firmly because that's just common sense, but I can come in with the drill. That's all there is to it. I'm now going to use a Sharpie. I'm literally just going to put it in here and draw around. The theory is I should have what roughly looks like a circle now. I've got a weird golden Sharpie for some reason. I might use that if this isn't clear enough. I could even cut this with my jigsaw actually. It'd be really, really dodgy, but I could do it with my jigsaw. I have to angle the camera a certain way, but if you look around here, you can see what roughly constitutes an outline. I'm just going to use my jigsaw right now to drill the hole. Well, no, to cut the hole. But before I can do that, I need to put a drill bit into this drill. A 10mm one. I've got to put a hole in the front of the case because obviously you need something to put the blade through. So I've got what I think is a 10mm drill bit here. It might be 9.5. And I'm just going to get it loaded into the drill. But these old drills can take a lot of abuse. Even this, I mean, this is supposedly the rubbish version with the plastic gearbox, but I tell you, I guarantee it beats all the cheap rubbish tools you get these days. So I'm putting quite a lot of effort into clamping that. And I've actually got on my chuck keys stuck. There we go. Chuck key is free. I'm going to put this on here in the middle. And trust me when I say when I say I'm going to be holding this thing down, I am going to be holding it down. God, that's never a nice thing to do. But the hole is now in the plastic, and I can go around with the jigsaw and cut it out. Now all that remains to be done is for me to use the jigsaw to cut the hole here. And I'm doing that off camera because I don't need you to see my dodgy, dangerous jigsaw technique and then try and replicate it. So when I come back, this will be cut. It's a wonder I still have any fingers or eyeballs. And if you look at that, you might notice that it's not perfectly circular. In fact, it's not even a bloody oval. I don't know what that is. It's just a mess. But I'm sure that when I put the fan on there and we have a nice 3D printed grill, it'll be okay. Oh, and I'm obviously going to take a file and just neaten up the edges and stuff. I've made it through this one pretty much unscathed. I haven't got any new cuts. That's quite surprising. And so all I need to do really is just grab the file and neaten this mess up. It's about time I put this thing in the case permanently. So, just gonna line it up, put it down here, make sure that nothing is gonna short, which I don't think it is. I'll just confirm that. So I do that, and this is clear of anything that it may short on, and then over here, those two I think line up. And they do, so that's nice, they line up, this one doesn't. I could do with something to go here, but it's not the end of the world. So I'm just going to put the board in, and then I'm going to screw it down. As usual, I've got my cordless screwdriver. Good stuff. Out of curiosity, I decided to see how well the fan would fit. So I've got it in the case, I've just tucked the wires out of the way, and if I were to lie this down here, haha, look at that, it fits, and not only does it fit, but it even spins, and it spins with no modification. There is a green thing, and I've got it right here, which is designed to monitor the temperature, and it would sit about here. Obviously it can't sit there anymore because the fan's in the way, but we'll just find somewhere new to mount it, and that should be fine. Now that the fan is in place, I can actually just draw through here and mark the housing. Then I'll know what to use the angle grinder on. We do things not because they're easy, but because we thought they would be easy. I heard that said somewhere. Now, I didn't think that this project would be easy, and so far it hasn't been. It's been a royal pain, actually. But it is nice to do stuff like this, just a little bit of mindless work. You know, business is winding down a bit because we're closing in on Christmas, at least we are when I'm recording this. And so keep yourself busy by doing a fun little project like this. You'll keep your skills sharp, and at the end you'll make something useful. And yes, I know this case looks atrocious at the moment, but we're going to have a nice 3D printed cover on the front. And to get that point across, I did a similar mod to another case in the past, and you can see it's got this nice 3D printed border around it. Next on the agenda, we need to get the power button sorted out. So I've already plugged it into the case, as you can see. Or should I say I've plugged it into the motherboard. It's going to run along, run along, run along. We'll run it down the front of the case. It's going to go to about here, and then this is where the original power button is. You can hear it clicking. So this is the wiring loom for the original power button. Pretty much we just need to cut this about here, cut that about there, and then solder the two of them together. I might very well regret doing this, but I'm just going to be rash and do it quickly. So I need about that much length. Just going to cut. Either way, I've just cut that. We're going to run this to about here, and then I'm going to fold this down, and I am going to cut it about there. I want to give myself some excess in case I make a mistake, or in case it turns out I want to change the wiring. Okay, I've worked it out. The two wires that are on their own are for the hard drive indicator, and then these four wires are for the power button and for the power button LED. So that should actually be fairly simple to wire up for a change. Either way though, I'm just going to use my multimeter. I'm going to touch it to the wires here, and it's going to make the relevant LEDs light up, and I can also use it to check which one is the power button, because when I click the button I'll hear a beep on the meter. So we've got power button, we've got power LED, we've got hard drive LED. And you know the power button is the one for the power button because it's closest to it. So I'm thinking that if Lenovo had any common sense anyway, it'll be the two wires on the right for the LED, the two wires next to it for the other LED, and the two wires on the left for the power button. So I'm just going to test that, and the way that I'm going to test it is I'm going to use these wire strippers. I'm going to strip the bare minimum off of here, and then I'm going to use my multimeter in diode mode, and that's going to tell me. Which, by the way, if you don't own one, a multimeter is an essential tool for this sort of work. Put it into diode mode. When I touch the probes to the wires, it's going to send a small bit of current down here, and that's going to light the LED up. So I'm guessing ground will be on the left. So we'll put this wire here, we'll put this one here. And nothing's happened on the screen, so I'm going to flip it around. And we've got a voltage, 1.8 volts being drawn, and I can actually see there's an LED lit up. So if I spin that round, it's a bit hard to see, but can you make out that LED? So in other words, we know that this one in my right hand, this one now in my left hand is the positive. So this is the positive for the hard drive, this is the negative, and that's really good to know. So I know the positive and the negative here. I now need to work out where the hard drive LED, well actually no, the hard drive LED was just these two separate wires, although I don't know which one is ground and which one isn't. That's the only limiting thing there. So in order to find that out, I can, well actually can I? Yes, so this is grey, and grey normally means ground in this instance. So if I put these two wires next to each other, there's some grey lines on here and there's no grey on here. So I can pretty much just put the cutters on, cut in between, split these apart, we'll strip them back, and I'll be able to tell which side's positive and which side's negative. I think I already know, but it pays to just check. So we'll do that. We'll do that. Going to turn the meter back on, back into diode mode, and I think that it's this way around. And yeah, there you go, so that lights up. And if I were to do it the other way, chances are nothing will happen. No, nothing happens. So, in other words, then we can put some heat shrink tubing on here. Some heat shrink tubing on there. And we can solder these up accordingly. So we know that the one on the left is ground and the one on the right is positive. So I'm just going to twist all of this together and then get it soldered up. Using the same trick as earlier, I've soldered up the hard drive LED, and now all that remains to do is to solder up the power button. And obviously it's literally two wires to two wires, and because a power button's momentary, it doesn't matter which way around you solder them. But I will just show you how to identify the power button. So you want to put your multimeter into continuity mode, which will be the mode that beeps. So you'll notice that when I touch the two probes together, you'll hear a beep. Brilliant. So I'll hold one probe on here, doesn't matter which way around, I'll hold the other probe on there, got to do this both with one hand, and then when I press the button you'll hear a beep. Hear that? So either way, doesn't matter which way around I solder it, but that's how you detect a power button. So for the final time, I'm just going to get some heat shrink, I'm going to cut it in half, roughly. I'm going to put it on the two wires, which I'll twist up first to make it easier. And then we'll just strip these two back, same as we've been doing. And now I can put the other two wires together. And this is where you could do this job 10 times faster if you had the appropriate crimping tool, but, well, I don't have the appropriate crimping tool, so I do it the old-fashioned way with solder. So then, let's slide the heat shrink tubing up. We'll do the same for the other one. And let's get it shrunk down. So 255 degrees Celsius, and I have the airflow at max. I wouldn't set the temperature much higher than 255, by the way. You don't want to start melting the heat shrink or burning it. But that's all good. Happy with that. The final thing to do now is just to slide the heat shrink down. You can see where I've had to split the wires to make soldering them possible. So you put the heat shrink tubing at the halfway point, and we'll do the same on the other side. Just put it at the halfway point, which to be fair is all the way up here, which is good. And then we can shrink this down again. And I'm just going to flip it around, That'll enable me to do the other side. And we are away. What I can now do is stand the case up. We can put these, we can put this thing back through, so that's going to go like that. And this, I assume, is going to be keyed, so it can only go one way. And I think the power button goes on the other side. Right, that's down, that's in place, it's not going to move. Clicks as you would expect. And if I've done my job right, it'll just plug into the board, no reason why it wouldn't. And remember, we wanted to tuck it along here, just because the power supplies are going to have wires sticking out the back, and I wanted to give myself room. So I've made this a bit longer than it needs to be, because this isn't exactly something you could just buy an extender for. So I'm actually going to tie a knot here, and then that has the bonus of flipping around where the pins sit, and now that can go right on here. There we go, just like that. And I can pull the knot a bit tighter, and that is something that I'm very happy with. Look at that, just what I wanted. Whilst I wait for a new graphics card, and by the way I'm going to be waiting a while because I've got to sell the old one first, I'm going to have to mount the power supply temporarily because I do need to use this PC in the meantime. So I'm going to plug my motherboard power, and I'm going to plug the CPU power in, and then I'm going to spin the case around a bit, and I'm just going to make use of a couple of the mounting holes at the back of the case. So as you can see, I can screw the power supply in here, and then I can put a screw in here and a screw in there, as long as I've got some washers. And the idea of a washer is that it allows you to pretty much increase the surface area of the head of the screw. So I can put that in like that, and it's probably not recommended, but it'll actually sit still like that for a moment. And then I can just get these two washers out that I've found, put one here, one there, and you'll see that that will allow it to be supported by the case. I'll just hold that into the corner as I tighten this down. I can now remove this one whilst holding this, because I only have two of these thumb screws. I can put this screw in here, leave that like that. I can then put a more standard screw in this one. And then, same as last time, I can hold this in the corner and just send it down. Happy days. And I'm confident enough that power supply is going to stay in place that I'll do this. Right, clearly that power supply is not going to go anywhere in the meantime. Doesn't exactly look standard, but I don't really care, because it's going to enable me to stand this up like a regular case and use it like a regular PC. Irritatingly, my M.2 NVMe SSD died, and even if it wasn't dead, I can't exactly plug it in down here because, well, it would touch the bottom of the case, so I need to find some sort of a way of extending that. But it means that in the meantime I'm using this rubbish 240GB Kingston SSD. There's no SATA connectors on the power supply, and I don't want to go and fashion cables to use these things, so I've soldered a SATA connector, the power connector, to a USB header. Where can I screw this into? Can I screw it in anywhere at all? I might literally attach it to the back fan like that. In fact, you know what, that's probably exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to attach that with two screws, and I'm going to plug the SATA connector in. And there we go, job done. That'll work temporarily. I'm happy to use this in the meantime. As promised, SSD's attached, going nowhere, just with two screws. Got these cables zip tied together well enough, and these are out of the way enough that I can carry on using those as well. Time for the big reveal. Does it switch on? And if it switches on, are the LEDs correct? It doesn't turn on. That's not great, is it? If it did turn on, I wonder if the LEDs were correct. Give it another... Nope, definitely doesn't turn on. Ugh. I've plugged just the power supply in, nothing else. I've got the computer on my lap. And the theory is I'm just going to poke these two pins, and then those two, and then those two with the tweezers, and one combination will turn the box on. Not that one, so it must be these two in this corner then. What's going on here? It's none of them. This connector is that cheap and flimsy but I actually managed to punch a hole in it and plug it in the wrong way round. So let that be a lesson to you. Make sure you pay attention to what you're doing. I've sorted that out after unplugging everything and panicking, but now, come straight to life. Power LED lights up, power button's working, and the hard drive LED won't do anything for us because there's no hard drive for it to detect. So let me just switch it off, plug the SSD in, and then we'll go from there. My computer's sat on its side because I've actually been using it for quite a while. The hard drive LED isn't lighting up, but that's fine. I'm sure that if I start the transfer of a large file from my server to the machine, then it's going to start lighting up. And actually it isn't, so either the hard drive LED isn't working, which is really unlikely, or I didn't solder the wires the correct way around. It's hardly of concern to me, I've got to be honest, but I suppose I've not done something properly, or there's something that needs to be investigated later on. There you have it then. I think we're in a really good position to end part 3 here, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. Working backwards, in this video we've managed to reverse engineer the LEDs and then wire them up as well as the power button, and that works as I would expect, with the exception of the hard drive LED, which to be honest I'm not going to look into too closely. We've cut a hole in the front of the case for the front fan, as well as removed all the plastic bits and so on to actually make the front fan sit down in place. I could have done a better job cutting that hole. Next time I won't be so hasty, but I was just in a rush to get it done. Speaking of hasty, I've managed to mount a temporary SSD in the computer, and we've got the power supply mounted temporarily as well. At least we do in the video, because in the real world I've actually been using the computer for a few weeks. It's working fine for me. It's in this temporary state, so it's sat on the floor with both of its power supplies and the graphics card, and at some point I'm going to sort out a bracket to get the PSUs mounted, but in the meantime I'm just using it because I've got work to do. Either way though, I hope you found the video helpful or useful, and I hope you're enjoying the series so far. If so, then feel free to leave a like. I see this thing running for 5 or 6 episodes, I mean possibly 7, it might not take that long. But yeah, if you're finding it useful so far, leave me a like, or don't, you're a free person. On the topic of begging, consider subscribing as well. It's completely free. You can always change your mind if you don't want to watch these things going forwards, but obviously it will help me out, and the more people that subscribe, the further the repair message spreads, as I always say, and the more people we can impact, because I think that, we should be fixing more of our stuff. People will benefit if they repair their own things. Number one, it's fun, at least I think, and I mean, I'm a bit weird like that, I suppose. But also, it'll save you some money. So I'm looking at a soldering station that I've fixed 3 times. That's 3 times I haven't had to go out and buy a new one. I fixed a PSP recently. I've got all sorts of motherboards and power supplies around the place. I've got a paper shredder under the desk that I've fixed. Just looking around the room, there's a 3-bar heater over there. It's kept me warm for the last 2 months. I repaired that. That desk, that was modified. I've chopped the front out of it so I can get my legs under. Both computer monitors were scrap and they were fixed. You see what I mean? You can get a lot done, and you can spend basically nothing if you fix your own things. So that is what I'm going to leave you with. I'll see you next time. Take care for now, and goodbye, I guess.